She avoided him for weeks, locked doors, flinched at his touch, and cried when she thought he wasn't watching. But nothing prepared him, or the doctor, for what the ultrasound revealed. What they found inside her body? Absolutely unreal. Before we dive into this unbelievable true story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more jaw-dropping content, and tap the bell icon so you never miss a twist like this. At first, I thought she was just tired, but then she stopped touching me, stopped talking, and started locking doors. For Daniel Matthews, life had always been predictable, and he liked it that way. He had a stable job, a loving wife named Rebecca, and a cozy home in the suburbs. But things had taken a sharp, confusing turn over the past month. Rebecca had become distant, not just distracted, but cold, almost afraid. She barely made eye contact, avoided physical touch, and flinched when Daniel reached out to hold her. At first, he blamed it on stress. Rebecca worked long shifts as a school counselor and had recently mentioned feeling overwhelmed. But it wasn't just that. She started locking the bathroom when she used to leave it wide open. She slept with her back to him, clutching her stomach protectively. She even began sleeping in the guest room, claiming that his snoring kept her up. Daniel's concern turned into confusion, and then worry. One night, while reaching for a glass of water, he noticed something on her phone, a calendar reminder labeled Doctor Urgent. She hadn't told him about any appointment. His heart dropped. Why hide something urgent from your husband? That night, Daniel confronted her gently. "Becca, is everything okay? Are you sick?" he asked. She looked at him, her eyes filled with something between guilt and fear. "I'm fine, just tired," she said. Then she walked away. But Daniel knew something was very wrong. 2 days later, Daniel followed her. Yes, it felt wrong, but after weeks of silence and confusion, he had to know. Rebecca said she was going to work, but instead, she took a different turn and pulled into the parking lot of Harborview Women's Health Clinic. Daniel's stomach twisted. He waited outside in his car, watching the clinic door anxiously. After 45 minutes, Rebecca emerged, pale-faced and walking slowly. She seemed shaken, almost as if she had just received terrible news. But instead of going home, she sat in her car, face buried in her hands. That night, Daniel didn't say a word. He didn't need to. His mind was racing. Was she pregnant? But they hadn't been intimate in weeks. Was she sick? Dying? Was there someone else? The next morning, Rebecca approached him quietly at the breakfast table. "I need you to come with me tomorrow," she whispered. "I have another appointment. Please." Daniel looked at her and simply nodded. They drove in silence the next day, back to the same clinic. Daniel's heart pounded. The receptionist called her name. Rebecca Matthews! The couple followed a nurse into a private room. It was quiet. Too quiet. Moments later, the doctor entered, an older woman with a calm, warm voice. "Rebecca?" "Daniel, we'll start with an ultrasound to confirm everything. Lie back, please." Daniel reached for Rebecca's hand. She hesitated, then let him hold it. The doctor began the scan. But halfway through, she froze. Her eyes widened. She looked again, adjusted the machine, and looked at the screen. Closer. Then she stood up abruptly and excused herself. Daniel's blood turned cold. "What's going on?" he asked. Rebecca's lips trembled. "I was hoping it wasn't real," she whispered. The doctor returned 5 minutes later, but this time she wasn't alone. Another physician came with her, a specialist. "We need to show you something," the first doctor said, pulling the monitor closer. "Rebecca isn't sick. She's pregnant. But this is not an ordinary pregnancy." Daniel's eyes widened. Pregnant? But how? He caught himself. He didn't want to embarrass Rebecca, but the timeline didn't add up. The doctor continued. "What we're seeing here is extremely rare. There appear to be 2 heartbeats, but not twins in the usual sense." Rebecca began crying silently, The specialist pointed at the monitor. What you're looking at is something called fetus in fetu. One of the embryos developed inside. The other. Daniel was speechless. So, there's a baby inside of the baby? Yes, the doctor nodded. And that's not all. The baby inside has formed unusually. It's not viable. It could become dangerous to the mother and the fetus. Rebecca sobbed. I didn't want to believe it. I felt something moving. At night, something strange. It didn't feel like normal kicks. Daniel sat frozen. This wasn't just a pregnancy. It was a medical anomaly. Something doctors rarely saw once in their careers. And there's something else. The specialist added gravely, Rebecca's blood work shows elevated hormone levels. Very unusual. We believe the second fetus may have some form of growth disorder, possibly even parasitic behavior. Daniel could barely breathe. Everything suddenly made sense. The distant behavior, the fear, the appointments, the protective way she held her stomach at night. She wasn't just scared, she was terrified. That night was silent. Daniel and Rebecca sat in the living room, neither of them touching their food. The only sound was the ticking clock above the fireplace. Didn't know how to tell you, she finally said. I didn't want to believe it myself. I kept praying it would go away, that it was just a mistake. Daniel sat beside her and took her hand gently. Why didn't you come to me sooner? She looked at him, her eyes raw. Because I didn't know if it was yours. Daniel blinked. Those words cut deeper than the ultrasound ever could. Rebecca explained. 2 months ago, I was at a conference. I had too much wine. Something happened. I didn't know how to tell you. Then I found out I was pregnant, but everything felt wrong. Daniel looked away, tears forming in his eyes. So this could be someone else's child? She nodded. The room felt like it was crumbling. But then Rebecca added something even more chilling. They said the second fetus could hurt me, or the baby. It has to be removed. They'll have to operate, and there's a risk. Daniel's pain turned to urgency. Then we do what we have to do. We protect you, no matter what. He didn't know how he felt anymore, about the betrayal, the confusion, the pain. But one thing was clear. Rebecca's life was on the line, and no matter what had happened, he still loved her. The surgery was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Rebecca was prepped for the procedure, and Daniel waited anxiously outside the operating room for 3 hours. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, the surgeon walked out, mask down, looking tired but calm. She's stable. The procedure was successful. Daniel exhaled for the first time in hours, but then the surgeon hesitated. There's something unusual. Daniel's heart skipped again. We removed the malformed fetus. It was not alive, but inside it, we found something. Something? The doctor held up a small, clear plastic container. Inside was what looked like a tiny, half-developed limb, along with what appeared to be a piece of metal. Metal? Daniel gasped. Yes. We believe it may have been ingested by the original embryo. It somehow ended up inside the parasitic fetus. It was likely causing Rebecca severe discomfort. Daniel was speechless. It was something out of a science fiction movie. Later, while Rebecca was recovering, the doctor showed them the full report. The metal object, a tiny crucifix, a keepsake Rebecca wore around her neck since childhood, swallowed during a fainting spell years ago, and never passed. Somehow, the second fetus had absorbed it. Daniel sat at her bedside, holding her hand tightly. You're okay. Now, he whispered. Rebecca nodded weakly. I'm sorry, Daniel, for everything. He kissed her forehead. We'll heal, one step at a time. 3 months later, Rebecca gave birth to a healthy baby boy. DNA tests confirmed he was, in fact, Daniel's. They named him Elijah, which means Jehovah is my God. Their family had been tested in the most unimaginable way. Through betrayal, medical mystery, and emotional chaos, they chose healing. And now, with Elijah in their arms, their story was no longer one of fear and confusion. It was one of hope and forgiveness.